Hello, habari, moroye, molweni, VUKA Africa. Welcome to the VUKA show. This is the show that is brought to you by Waki Health and Africa Free of New HIV Infections. We are bringing you a second episode of a very important discussion that pertains to HIV prevention research, or even health research, if you like, where we're really talking for all of us out there in the community who are not necessarily working in research, but are very interested and very much concerned about the issues that pertain to how ethical is the research that is being conducted in our communities is. How is it ethical? And we today, as usual, we are live on AfNHi, Africa Free of New HIV Infections Facebook page, on Twitter, as well as on YouTube. So please continue to share and share all of these discussions with everybody. So last week, as you might remember, we had somebody who is a seasoned ethicist, somebody who knows about all the things that pertain to health research and their ethics. And he is here today with us again as we are really talking about this issue. But one of the important things that this discussion actually is centered around a resource that AfNHi has developed for all of us, which is the Research Ethics Pocket Guide. This is a guide that you can always have and put it in your pocket or on your WhatsApp or wherever, so that whenever you are required to be part of the process that requires you to either review ethics or have an opinion about ethics, you are in a position to just pull your guide, and your guide is going to help you so that you can speak and look very lovely. And again, I'll remind you who our guest is. As you can see him there, he's Dr. Paul Ndebele. Dr. Paul Ndebele, who serves as an assistant director in the Office of Research Excellence in the Milken Institute School of Public Health at George Washington University. This is in the US in America. Dr. Ndebele also serves as a professional lecturer in the Department of Global Health, where he teaches courses on responsible conduct of research. And that is the reason why he's the right person to speak to us, because he can speak about responsible conduct of research and public health ethics. He holds a PhD in research ethics obtained right down in the south of Africa, in South Africa, at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And his main area of focus and interest includes improving how research is happening and how ethical the research that we have happens. Last week, we spoke more about the basic concepts that are important to understand as part of understanding ethics. And Dr. Paul Ndebele told us all about that. And in fact, why should you, as a community advocate, a health advocate, a research advocate, a community member, why should you care about ethics? Dr. Paul Ndebele told us about that yesterday. And what are some of the things, processes that we should have in order to make sure that we're involved in the processes. And in fact, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is the ethical review process. What does that entail? Dr. Paul Ndebele, welcome.
Thank you, Ntando. Thank you for having me on the VUKA show. So from last time, we spoke about the unfortunate things that occurred in research involving human beings. And so the ethics review process has now been designed by society to ensure that there is an independent group of individuals who can watch over the research before it is conducted and during the time that it is conducted. So the international guidance documents that are there from way back as the 1960s emphasize on the need for ethical review process. So we've got research ethics committees in the various institutions that conduct research to review the research before it is actually conducted. So they are looking at the research protocol and all the other documents, including the informed consent document, to ensure that they indeed comply with the ethical principles that we discussed last week. So in short, we can say that the ethical review process is actually a strategy which was put in place to ensure that there is an independent group of observers that can check on the research before it is conducted and during the time that it is conducted. Thank you.
Now you are talking to us about an important process that really speaks about an independent body that is set to make sure that research in communities is happening. And I imagine this is a multidisciplinary group of people. And how often do we have community representatives in those groups?
So it is actually a recommendation that there should be at least one member who is representing the community within the research ethics committee. But I also want to add that there are several other opportunities for community representatives to step into the process and work with researchers in terms of providing oversight and providing ideas about how the research should be conducted. So we are looking at community members serving on the community advisory boards. They are also working with the investigators and providing ideas. But we also see community members participating even in design meetings before the protocols have been designed. We also see community members or advocates being invited by research ethics committees to serve as consultants. So in all these roles, they need to be aware of their roles and expectations.
No, that's very good to know that there are actually a number of opportunities where ordinary community people can really play a role in the process of ensuring that the research that is happening in your community, in your country, wherever you are, that you also have interest in, is happening in an ethical manner. And in fact, what Dr. Ndebele is telling us today is that that is not only a responsibility of certain people. You have a responsibility as a stakeholder and as a community person to make sure that where research takes place, it all happens in a way that protects the human rights of the people and also ensures that the ethical principles are adhered to. Now, Dr. Ndebele, that actually, so it's well and good when before the trial is designed and during the design of the trial, but what about when the trial is actually happening?
So when the trial is actually happening, there are various mechanisms for community representatives to provide that function of looking over what's happening. So in the first place, we expect some periodic reports that will be coming from the investigators about how the trial is going on. And more so, we expect the investigators to provide updates in terms of the adverse events that are being experienced within the study. Here we're looking at individuals perhaps who are reacting to the product which is being tested. We are also looking at any other unanticipated challenges. They actually need to be reported. So we see investigators actually having to report these, let's say, through the community advisory board or through a bulletin that is, dedicated to all the stakeholders. But also they report these to the research ethics committee, where we have the community representative as a member. So those are some of
Wonderful.
the ways in which they continue to provide, feedback to the
I see.
community.
And those are the opportunities that we really should be mindful of wherever you are. And because research is happening in a number of countries, especially HIV research in all of the countries in the sub-Saharan region, between Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, Swaziland, and many, many other parts of the world. You have a responsibility as a community member that when research happens, you are actually part of the process. But most importantly, not just part of the process, just to tick a box, but most importantly, to play a role in the ethical processes and ethical reviews of all of that research. And that is the reason why, as VUKA Africa, we really want to awaken all of us around the important aspects of the conduct of research in our communities, something that we know that has been spoken about in the past 2 years because of COVID. However, this is something that has been happening for years, where research is happening in communities, and we really need to make sure that that research happens in ways that are human rights protecting and ethical principles and practices adhering. and you all as a community member have a role in that process. And in fact, as part of this discussion, we really are going to be launching a health research ethics pocket guide. And this is a guide that is going to be, accessible to all of us. Continue to follow us as part of the of AfNHi and VUKA show. And in fact, one of the things that we'll be doing is to, after these shows where Dr. Ndebele really took us to some of the basic concepts and processes around ethical processes of research, we're going to be having a two-part webinar where we'll actually be launching the tool guide, taking you through the tool guide, and we're also going to have Dr. Ndebele as part of that discussion to actually work with us in really breaking down some of the concepts that are involved there. Now, Dr. Ndebele, as part of this, in the last segment of our show today, please talk to us about, in the whole process, you mentioned that there are multidisciplinary teams of ethics committees, and we have other regulatory bodies in each of the countries, and then we have community members. In all of this process, and then we have researchers as well. Who is accountable to who?
Thank you very much, Ntando. So we see the investigators and their sponsors playing a very, very important role in terms of facilitating the whole process of research. But when it comes to accountability, we want to emphasize that researchers are accountable to various parties. They are accountable to the communities that host their research projects. They are accountable also to the institutions that host them, because researchers conduct their research as members of specific institutions. So those research ethics committees are part of those institutions. So they are accountable to the research ethics committees. But within each and every country, the researchers are also accountable to the drug regulatory authorities in those specific countries. The researchers are also accountable to the sponsors. The sponsors are the ones who are overall in charge of the way the research is going to be conducted. So yes, the researchers are accountable to all these different parties. They want to ensure that they are meeting the expectations of all those different parties. So I would say at the end of the day, the investigators are accountable to us as nations, because they are doing it for us as countries.
Oh, that's an important point to end on, actually. Research, especially health research, is happening for the good of our countries, for the good of society, for the good of communities. And therefore, when it happens, it must happen in an accountable manner and in a manner that promotes the good and the well-being of our communities and society. And that is where we leave it at today. And thank you very much, Dr. Paul Ndebele. And we are now going to see each other next when we do the webinar series. We have part 1 and part 2 that is going to be launching the Research Ethics Pocket Guide. And the first one is happening on the 2nd of March, 2022 at 4 p.m. East African time. That is 3 p.m. Southern African time. And the second part of the webinar is happening on the 23rd of March, 2022, again, the same time. 4 p.m. if you are in the east of Africa, and if you are in the southern part of Africa, it happens at 3 p.m. Otherwise, thank you very much, and thank you. Have a good day, Dr. Ndebele, because it's very much morning for you.
Thank you so much, Ntando.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.